A high school girl was assigned to a dormitory that had not been occupied for a long time. Her roommates fell one after another, and she witnessed an unforgettable scene. The story happened to Xiaoli in 2016 when she was studying in Chengdu. Due to the distance between her home and school, she had to live on campus. It is worth mentioning that the school admitted many students that year, so the number of boarders also increased accordingly. Originally, the school's dormitories were all structured with beds above desks, but Xiaoli was assigned to a dormitory with bunk beds, which had 8 beds in total and was very cramped. When Xiaoli first entered the dormitory, she felt an indescribable smell, as if it had not been lived in for a long time. However, the school had already arranged everything, so she could only accept the reality and live in this dormitory. The first few days were peaceful, but about 7 or 8 days later, just before the start of military training, 6 of the 8 people in their dormitory unexpectedly fell ill and went home on leave within 3 days. Of course, this does not exclude the possibility that they pretended to be sick to avoid military training. As a result, only Xiaoli and another roommate, Xiao Wan, remained in the dormitory. Xiao Wan was 2 years older than Xiaoli and had a straightforward and bold personality, while Xiaoli was relatively timid. One night, when there were only the 2 of them left in the dormitory, a strange thing happened, which still makes Xiaoli unable to forget it to this day. That night, after finishing evening self-study, Xiaoli and Xiao Wan returned to their dormitory. Xiao Wan went directly to the bathroom to take a shower, while Xiaoli was too tired and turned off the lights before lying down on Xiao Wan's bed for a short rest. As Xiao Wan's bed was on the lower bunk, Xiaoli had barely laid down for 5 minutes when she felt someone touch her head. The feeling was very real, and Xiaoli could clearly feel that the person's nails were long and sharp. She was so scared that she sat her up and looked back, but saw nothing. Thinking it was just her imagination, she lay down again. Not long after lying down, she felt very sleepy. In her drowsiness, she felt the mattress sink a little, indicating that someone had sat her down by the bedside. Thinking it was Xiao Wan, who had just finished showering and sat her down, she was about to open her eyes and speak when she realized that the person sitting by the bedside was not Xiao Wan. Xiao Wan had shoulder-length hair, while the person sitting by the bedside had sparse hair that had fallen onto the bed, and the hair was very frizzy. It happened to fall on Xiaoli's hand, making her hand a bit itchy, so she called out for Xiao Wan. However, Xiao Wan's voice came from the bathroom, asking, "What's wrong?" At that moment, Xiaoli suddenly woke up, but in that instant, the person sitting by the bedside disappeared without a trace. At that time, Xiaoli was so scared that she started crying and trembling like an electric shock. Xiao Wan heard the crying and quickly ran out of the bathroom with foam still on her head. Xiaoli was so scared that she couldn't speak at first. Xiao Wan, worriedly washing her hair without asking much, said, "You go back to bed quickly." Terrified, Xiaoli climbed back to her upper bunk bed. Strangely enough, she fell asleep soon after lying down. For the following period of time, she slept very peacefully until midnight when she was awakened by a cold wind. It was August in Chengdu, a very hot time. The cold wind blew her awake. She habitually leaned out to see if the dormitory door was open, so the air from the hallway was cooler. Just as she leaned out, she saw a female ghost standing in front of Xiaojuan's bed. This female ghost was tall and thin with long hair. At that time, there was still wind blowing in the dormitory, and the female ghost was only wearing a short-sleeved shirt and shorts. As the wind blew, the clothes clung to her arms and legs, making her look very thin and frail, almost like skin and bones. Especially her hair was very long but sparse, and when the wind blew, it fluttered like a curtain beside her. This scene has been deeply imprinted on Xiaoli's mind and cannot be erased. Looking at this scene, Xiaoli's head buzzed, quickly closed her eyes, turned around and prepared to pretend to sleep. Can you imagine that she would fall asleep? Her mind was filled with the just now scene. In that end, driven by curiosity, she sneakily peeked out with one eye tilted. It happened that she noticed the woman start to walk towards their dormitory balcony. After taking a few steps, to Xiaoli's surprise and shock, Xiaojun suddenly sat her up from her bed and shouted loudly, "Who are you?" Her voice was particularly loud. As soon as the words were spoken, Xiaoli noticed that the woman had disappeared, so Xiaojun also got out of bed and turned on the light. The 2 people looked at each other without saying anything, then squeezed into one bed and spent a sleepless night together. During this time, Xiaojun said she felt like she was being pressed down while sleeping and couldn't move. She saw a shadow of a person standing by the bedside in a daze. Later, when the shadow moved forward, she finally regained movement and shouted loudly who was there. As a result, the shadow disappeared until dawn broke. The two people applied together to change dormitories. It wasn't until they were in their second year of high school that they heard that the dormitory they had lived in before had never been occupied and had always been sealed off because there were too many people in their group. This dormitory was reopened. As for whether anything had happened in this dormitory before, that remains unknown.